From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com, and if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he so often does, following the Carolina football or basketball game, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew saw Carolina pick up the win, a big win over Florida State today in Chapel Hill, 78-70 on this court right there behind us. Also, Roy Williams' 900th career win, fastest coach in D1 history to reach that. I think he's, fifth all-time to reach that 900 milestone, so big accomplishment for Roy Williams.
Fastest in games and fastest in seasons.
Yeah, pretty impressive, man. Pretty impressive. But got to talk about the game, obviously, and the way in which Carolina won this game. I think it is something we're obviously going to dive into right here. I'm not going to use the cliche tale of two halves. I'm not going to spell that on, even though I just did.
But you just did.
Even though I just did.
I said, don't use that cliche.
I had to throw it in there because I love it, but I'm not going to use it while using it at the same time.
Oh, full disclosure, it's in my 5 takeaways too. But
Exactly.
But I did say tale of two halves, defending the dribble drive.
I had to say it, man. It's one of my favorite things.
I at least narrowed it down. So we're both guilty.
Exactly.
Anyway.
We're both guilty of saying it. But, AJ, what we saw in the first half, I thought was, we obviously had fans here for the first time this season, first time in a long time, which played a huge role, about 3,200 fans here. I thought Carolina came out really amped up. And then they went through this stretch, which we've seen so many times this year, where they just could not hit shots. I think they were shooting, it was 2 for 17 at one point or something along those lines.
It was rotten.
It was bad. It was just bad. And like I said, we've seen this from Carolina this year. Behind by 12 at halftime, you're I think a lot of people in this building are like, here we go again. I don't really know if Carolina's going to be able to make come back from a 12-point deficit against the league leaders in Florida State. But they did so. Huge performance from Carolina in that second half. Played really, really well. I'm going to let you list off some of the stats and some of the numbers that went into Carolina coming back. But overall, AJ, it was just a game in which the way Carolina played in the first half, kind of completely different from the second half, although I don't think it was from a lack of effort to start out. You know what I mean?
Shout out to Brendan Marks from the Athletic.
Yep.
We chat a lot during games. He sits behind me on press row. And at halftime, we were talking about this team and just sort of two things. One, who is their best player right now? We'll get to that in a minute. The other thing is, this club's not going to make the NCAA tournament. Yeah. Because the way following up Marquette with it. Now, granted, this wasn't an effort thing like you said. And they're playing if you take away the top 4 teams in the country, if there's a team in that next tier that could win a national championship if somebody gets knocked off, it's not inconceivable FSU could win a national. I'm not sure they're as good as they were a year ago when I thought they would have won a title had there actually been a tournament. But they're certainly a Final Four caliber team. And they're men. And when you look out there and look at FSU's guys next to Carolina's guys, Mike Norvell's got to be licking his chops in Tallahassee, especially if you get Raekwon Gray out on the football field. Point is that the Tar Heels were playing hard. I thought they were a little amped up because of people were here. The one play that really kind of slammed that home for me, no pun intended, was when Caleb Love tried to dunk. And
he tried to dunk.
He took off from right here.
I think he was in the stands when he took off.
And he had a few plays where he was just really just trying to dial it up. And I kind of thought that might happen tonight. Huge game.
Yeah, when they're so young especially.
B, coming off the performance against Marquette. And then C, these freshmen played in front of their home fans. They ran out of the tunnel here to cheers for the first time.
And they got loud in here too.
And it's February 27th. So, but they found it. They found themselves. They figured this thing out and eventually got it going. It was 39-23 at one time, and then spanning both halves, they went on a 23-5 run. They took the lead. They actually eventually led at one point 55-50, and that was a 32-11 run over a team that could go to the Final Four. Over the best team in the ACC, a club that rocked Virginia 2 weeks ago, a club that has responded, one of the few teams in America that has responded to COVID pauses really well, and they've done it twice. So Carolina beat a really good team tonight. They beat a team that, quite frankly, should have won this game. Florida State's better than North Carolina, but North Carolina dialed up an edge, and the guy we're going to talk about here in a second kind of infused them and took them to another level. It was almost as if he said, okay, I'm playing up here. You guys better come up. Because Roy Williams made it very clear at halftime, this is unacceptable, and they exploded in the second half. They were better defensively. They stopped the dribble. The dribble drive was there all night long in the first half for FSU. There was literally no resistance.
No, there wasn't.
Help side defense wasn't there. Second half, they manned up better. They defended the dribble better, and they had a help side presence. They had a rim protecting presence that changed things. So that was huge. And guess what? They made free throws.
Yeah, it's huge.
This club's been awful from the free throw line for the last month, and they made all 14 in the second half, 27 to 30, against the best free throw shooting team in the ACC, who was 3 for 9 in the second half. So in the end, maybe the stars were a little bit aligned for all this stuff to happen under this roof in here, which was, on a personal note, it was. I've been doing this for 25 years, and this year has just been unbelievable. We'll have some podcasts in the off season when we get a chance to reflect, but this was great for me personally, and for all the people in here to have a little sense of normalcy. And these kids got a little sense of normalcy as they got used to people being in here, and they learned to play, getting that lift from the fans, and they certainly gave them a lift, so the fans get a kudos as well.
Yeah, for sure. AJ, you just talked a second ago about Carolina kind of found his rim protector during that game, and we got to talk about Walker Kessler. I know you were alluding to him, but huge
Everybody
game.
watching this
coming out party for Walker Kessler. I'll go ahead and use that term that a ton of people use, but 20 points, 8 rebounds, season high 20 points from Walker Kessler, 8 rebounds. Just a really solid performance. I think he had 6 at halftime, and 14 of those points came in the second half, I believe. So it was just a really positive performance from Kessler as a whole. I thought he did some really nice things offensively and defensively. I think the one play that stands out from the game maybe the most was that leaky black pass where he threaded the needle and found Kessler for an easy dunk, which got this place rocking. That might have been the loudest it gotten here, but overall, we've seen Kessler kind of take strides, something Roy Williams mentioned over the past, 5-6 games maybe. He's really just started to see some glimpses of what he could do. And I think tonight we really saw, his full potential playing against, like I said, the best team in the league.
Well, March is in 2 days, and then in less than 4 weeks we have spring, right?
Time
what happens
flies,
in the
man.
spring?
Yep.
Pollination, the flowers start to bloom, everything starts to, leaves start to grow. That's what Kessler's been doing for the last 3 weeks, okay? What we saw tonight was that huge 3 days of monsoons, like in late April. And then you wake up one morning and everything is in full bloom.
The grass
and
is
the
just
pollen's
bald.
gone and everything is normal. That's what Kessler was tonight. I mean, we saw literally every element of his skill set and of his natural gifts on display. Running the court, like you said. He had a steal that led to a dunk. Early in the second half, he had 3 buckets in the first 204 in the second half,
like
to just elevate them to a notch that they haven't been very often this year. And he had 4 blocks, that rim protector. FSU scored 22 points in the paint in the first half, mostly on dribble drives. Okay, they weren't dumping it into the post and turning it into spin moves and drop steps and scoring over bigs. They weren't doing that at all. It was dribble drive, score, and a couple of putbacks. In the second half, FSU had 16 points in the paint, but 5 of those baskets were on second chance opportunities. They weren't because of the drive, and a big part of that was because of Mr. Kessler. But you know who else? The effect of the other guys? Garrison Brooks played a little more above the rim in the second half. Armando Bacot, when he got in, played a little more above the rim in the second half. And then the guys defended in front of him. The effect of Kessler impacted every element of this team, every nuance of this game, because he clearly infused the team. I'm going to use that word a lot because he did. You don't often see in college basketball when a guy who's like 8th on the team in scoring infuses the team to a win over the number 11 team in America. But Kessler did that tonight, and it wasn't a fluke. We've seen the ascent for about 3 weeks, going back to UVA, when he finally got an opportunity. Well, I say finally because he's been coming along, because he had 2 quarantines back in the fall, and it's taken some time. And I say finally, meaning that, okay, people got a chance to see an extended version of Walker Kessler, and he's been really, really good. I think Steve Kirshner gave us a note at the end of the press conference tonight where he's been at or above like a new high every game for like 5 or 6 straight games.
I can believe that.
I don't remember seeing something like that. So 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 block shots, and he gave the team energy as if there were 21,750 people in this building. So you could throw that stat on his stat line as well. It was a phenomenal performance. The students were chanting his name.
Oh, yeah, 3 times. It was at least 3 times.
At least 3 times. And I actually thought, and they did it in one sequence where he had a turnover. He missed a box out and allowed a putback, and then he had a reach foul on the other end.
He might have just got a little hype when he heard Dean Smith.
But what was really cool, too, is Adam Smith asked him after the game about when he looked up when the game ended, just kind of taking it all in. And mind you, there were only like 3,400 people in the building here, but it seemed like a lot more. And he said it was really cool. He's playing in this famous building, playing for this fabled historic program, wearing this historic uniform, and he got a chance to soak it in with the crowd here. you got to think that the guys were certainly inspired playing in front of fans tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to think that Walker Kessler sort of combined that with, but they were feeding him and he was feeding them.
Exactly.
It was a nice relationship for 40 minutes of basketball.
Exactly. I don't think it was a coincidence that, first time the fans are in the building, Kessler, like we said, taking those steps, but just played phenomenal tonight. I think that, like you mentioned, that definitely had to have some kind of impact. He was outstanding. Yeah, he was really good tonight.
It wasn't like, okay, well, he's going to be at 2 points in 8 minutes the next game.
No.
He was really, really good. Roy started him in the second half. We'll see what happens moving forward. They got to turn this thing around in 2 days, which we're going to talk about here in a second, and we'll see what Kessler can do against that zone, because Carolina bigs have had a lot of success against Syracuse's zone.
Absolutely. AJ, let's look back before we look ahead. It's been an interesting week for Carolina, to say the least, last 7-8 days. Go back to last Saturday, they, just probably played their best game of the season against Louisville.
Yeah.
Really big win for the Tar Heels. I know there was some factors that come in with Louisville and COVID and all that good stuff, but regardless, Carolina played really well that night and won big. Then you transfer to later in the middle of the week, playing Marquette. We talked about it, probably Carolina's worst performance of the season so far. And then we see, like I said in this game, you see in the first half, you're like, oh, here we go again, behind by 12 at the half. Lack of energy maybe isn't a problem, but, FSU is just the better team in this one. Completely flips in the second half, and Carolina ends up getting a huge win over the Seminoles. So, been a very interesting week for the Tar Heels. We've talked about it a ton. This is a young team. You kind of expect these inconsistencies that come with it. Now looking ahead, like you mentioned, quick turnaround playing up at Syracuse, and they've got Duke here in the Smith Center. Maybe even another game. We'll see how things go here. But overall, I think it's just been a very interesting week for the Tar Heels, and capped it off with a big win, though.
I wrote a piece that we ran this morning about just the mystery of what Roy told us yesterday. He really doesn't know from day to day what these guys are going to give him. He doesn't know which player's going to flare up that night, which one's going to have a tough game. Just doesn't know, and people are like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, there's something functionally wrong in the program. No, it's
a young team. Yeah.
4 of the freshmen were 18 when practice started. Okay. The average experience on this roster is 1 year and 1.07 years of college basketball experience.
It's not a lot.
I'm not a big excuse maker for anything, but I explain. And I like to try to figure out why things happen. And you'd have to be a fool to not understand that the youth in this team is a factor for its ebbs and flows.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And we've seen that. So would it be a surprise if they went to Syracuse and didn't play very well Monday night? Given what we've seen over the last month, no. But they own Syracuse. Other than the ACC tournament last year, if you go back, they've won 9 out of 10 against them. Going back to the 2016 team when Bryce Johnson had 8 assists, dumping down to Isaiah Hicks on the baseline to Carrier Dome. Carolina has been really, really good against that zone, and its bigs have been really, really good. So Kessler and Brooks and Baycott and Sharp are going to have a chance to do that Monday night. But that will be the next test, because we keep looking for signs of growth, and there has been growth. But the ultimate sign of growth is connecting positive performances with another positive performance. Yeah. We stood here a week ago after Louisville and said, well, they got to connect it to Marquette. Yeah. They didn't.
Didn't do it. No.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't connect it. They left it out in the parking lot somewhere.
Yeah, that was a tough game.
Now they have to connect it with a quick turnaround, and they got to travel. They practice tomorrow, then they travel. So this is a maturity lesson here for these kids. How do they handle it? I think we'll get as much a read on this team Monday night as we got today.
Yeah.
And once you start getting to a point where they start connecting positive performances, you don't have to look at stuff like that anymore. Then they take the next step. Right now, they got to connect. So we'll see. We'll see where they are. We'll see where this maturity stuff is, because they're going to go into an empty building that's twice the size of this. Yeah. I've been in there a lot of times.
It's weird.
Going to be there Monday night, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle that when they have to generate all their own energy against a very desperate team. Syracuse is desperate right now.
Yeah, I know.
They got to win out essentially to play their way into the NCAA tournament. So that'll be really interesting to see what the Tar Heels go up against. But they did respond to a bad game.
Yeah.
And in game. Now the mystery was one game to the next. Roy had it in the course of 40 minutes tonight.
Yeah, you're not lying.
So the one positive thing that Roy can take from both halves is that they did play hard in the first half. They just didn't play smart, didn't play well. But they were phenomenal in the second half. Got to connect it now.
Yep, definitely got to connect it, AJ. But regardless, Carolina getting the big win over Florida State tonight, 78-70 in Chapel Hill. That's going to do it for us. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the win tonight, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Share it with your friends, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks.